I was always the reliable one, the one people called when something needed to be handled quietly, the one who showed up early and stayed late, the one who didn't complain, because there was always someone else who needed it more. Over time, that role settles into your bones. You stop noticing how often your name is volunteered, how rarely your opinion is asked, how exhaustion begins to feel like duty. It doesn't feel like disrespect, it feels like responsibility. And you tell yourself that being needed is the same as being valued, because questioning that would mean admitting how much of yourself you've already given away. I believed that for a very long time, until one ordinary moment, so small it almost slipped past me, made me stop and think, when did my life become something everyone else felt free to manage? That was the moment everything didn't just shift, it quietly warned me. It wasn't an argument, it wasn't even a confrontation, just a comment made in passing. Someone mentioned plans that involved me, plans already arranged, already spoken about, already moving forward. My role in them was stated calmly, as if it had been settled long ago. I smiled, I nodded, but something tightened in my chest, because this wasn't help, and it wasn't concern, it was assumption, not a question, not a suggestion, a conclusion. Later, I replayed the moment, searching for the part where I might have agreed. I told myself not to be sensitive, that people were only trying to make things easier, that I was reading too much into it. But one thought wouldn't leave me alone. This wasn't the first time, it was just the first time I noticed. And once I did, I couldn't stop asking the question that followed me into the night. If no one needed my permission anymore, when had I stopped owning it? In the Carver household, love was never evenly distributed. I understood that early. My older sister, Vanessa, moved through life as if the world had been waiting for her. She was admired without effort, praised without pause. When she said she wanted to study fashion design, my parents treated it like destiny unfolding. Tears, applause, plans made instantly. Every success was announced, photographed, shared, proof that she was exactly who they believed in. When I spoke about becoming a doctor, there was no moment like that. Just a nod, that's practical. No celebration, no excitement. Even on my graduation day, they arrived late, rushed, distracted. Vanessa had somewhere else she needed to be. I got a hurried photo in the parking lot and a polite congratulations that felt more like closure than pride. So I worked harder. I buried myself in textbooks. I earned my way into one of the best medical schools in the country. Years passed in exams, overnight shifts, sleepless rotations. I told myself their approval wasn't necessary, that achievement would be enough, that respect would come eventually. What I didn't see then was that their favoritism wasn't just emotional, it was practical. 8 years ago, shortly after I finished medical school, my father called one evening. His voice was careful, embarrassed. They were short on the mortgage, just for that month, he said. I sent the money without hesitation. That month became every month. Mortgage payments, insurance, repairs, emergencies, always urgent, always temporary, and always assumed. The transfers became automatic. No discussion, no gratitude, just expectation. When I was pregnant with twins and their father left halfway through, I reached out, finally needing something myself. After a frightening night in the hospital, I called my parents. They didn't come. Vanessa had just finished a show overseas. She needed support. They missed the birth, the weeks that followed, the exhaustion, the fear, the loneliness, and still the payments continued. 8 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I kept track, not because I wanted recognition, but because I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining how one-sided it had become, that I wasn't selfish for feeling drained, that I had been carrying more than my share, quietly, faithfully, while being treated like an inconvenience. At the time, I thought this was just the role I had been given. What I didn't know yet was that roles, once noticed, can be questioned, and mine was about to be. It was a Tuesday evening. I had just finished a 16-hour shift. Exhaustion sat deep in my body, but my mind was clear enough to drive. The light turned green. I entered the intersection. I never saw the truck. It ran the red light at full speed. The impact slammed into the driver's side. Glass exploded. Metal screamed. The world spun, and then went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in an ambulance. Pain radiated through my abdomen, sharp and relentless. A familiar face hovered over me. "Myra, can you hear me?" Marcus Smith, an emergency physician at my hospital, someone I'd worked beside for years. "What happened?" My voice barely made it out. "You were hit by a truck. We're worried about internal bleeding," he said calmly. "We're taking you straight in. You'll need surgery." Surgery? My mind jumped instantly to Lily and Lucas, my 3-year-old twins. The babysitter leaves at 8. I checked the clock, 7:15. 45 minutes. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, blood smearing across the screen. I called my parents. "Dad," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice, "I'm at the hospital. I've been in an accident. I need you and Mom to watch the kids, just for a few hours." There was silence, muffled voices in the background. Then my phone buzzed. A message in the family group chat. "You've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. Figure it out yourself." Another message followed, just from my father. "You're a doctor. You're used to hospitals. Don't turn this into something dramatic." Vanessa sent nothing, just a laughing emoji. I stared at the screen, reading it again and again, waiting for it to change. It didn't. Marcus noticed my expression. He didn't ask questions. He simply handed me his phone. 4 minutes. That's all it took. An emergency nanny service, triple the usual rate. Instructions given, payment approved. My children were safe. Strangers, absolute strangers, had shown me more care in those minutes than my own family had in 8 years. As the ambulance pulled into the hospital bay, the pain intensified, but not just in my body. Something else cracked open. It wasn't just the accident, it was the clarity, the sudden, brutal understanding that their love had always come with conditions, and I had been the one paying to keep it. Lying in that hospital bed later that night, I made a decision. Not emotional, not dramatic, just final. No more automatic transfers, no more financial rescues, no more shrinking myself to stay useful. 8 years of giving ended quietly, and for the first time, I felt something unfamiliar: relief. The surgery lasted 4 hours. A ruptured spleen, internal bleeding. They told me later that a few more minutes might have changed everything. I woke to the steady hum of machines, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and nurses moving in and out with practiced calm. 5 days in the hospital. No calls, no texts, no visits, not even a single message asking if I was alive. Meanwhile, the nanny service I'd hired stepped in without hesitation. Daily photo updates, warm meals, patience, care, complete reliability. Strangers had protected my children with more concern than my own family ever had. On the 3rd day, I asked for my laptop. "You should be resting," the nurse said gently. "I am," I replied, "just not the way you think." I logged into my bank account. 8 years of automatic transfers lined the screen like a quiet confession. Mortgage payments, insurance, emergency expenses, always on time, always unquestioned. I didn't hesitate. I canceled every transfer. I blocked my parents' numbers, Vanessa's too. No speeches, no explanations, no final warnings, just silence on my terms. It felt like setting down a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. Marcus stopped by later that afternoon, coffee in hand. No urgency, no pity. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better," I said honestly. "For the first time in 8 years, I actually feel better." I knew the fallout would come. Missing money is always noticed. There would be anger, accusations, demands. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of any of it. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my front door. My heart sped up. I wasn't sure I was ready. I looked through the peephole and froze. Grandpa Thomas, silver hair, sharp blue eyes, standing straight despite his age, the only one who had ever questioned the way things worked in our family. He pulled me into a hug so tight my incision protested. "Myra," he said quietly, "I know everything." Then he looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. "And I need you to come somewhere with me." In that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the moment the truth finally stepped forward. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze. I printed every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, 8 years of payments, meticulously organized, bound in a plain manila folder. 3 days before the party, Aunt Eleanor came over. She flipped through the pages, her eyes widening with each line. $364,200, she said flatly. "And they called you a burden?" I didn't want to destroy the family. I just wanted them to see, to acknowledge, to stop the lies. "You're not destroying anything," Aunt Eleanor said firmly. "You're stopping the lie. They built their lives on your silence. You're not obligated to keep giving." The weight of 8 years hit me fully. Month after month, year after year, money flowing one way, always my responsibility, always unnoticed, always taken. Then came the messages. Vanessa had begun spinning her story already, painting me as unstable, reckless since the accident. My parents were preparing their defense before I even arrived. Grandpa Thomas's house waited, a grand colonial estate sprawling 3 acres of manicured lawn, white columns, a wraparound porch. Inside, more than 40 cars lined the driveway. The party would be full of eyes, expectations, judgments. I wore a simple navy dress, professional, understated. I wasn't there for drama. I was there for truth. The folder with every transaction rested in my bag, heavy with history. I drew a deep breath. This was the moment 8 years of silent sacrifice, of unnoticed effort, would finally be visible. I pulled into Grandpa Thomas's circular driveway, hands tight on the wheel. Lily and Lucas chattered in their car seats, blissfully unaware of the storm waiting inside. The house gleamed in the afternoon sun, white columns, manicured lawns, balloons peeking through the windows. Inside, more than 40 cars crowded the driveway. The family had gathered. Every face, every expectation, every judgment was in place. I stepped out, folder in hand, dressed simply in navy. Understated, professional. I wasn't here to create drama. I was here to deliver truth. Their eyes found me instantly. Mom in cream, smiling at nothing, Dad stiff in his suit, Vanessa gliding across the room like she owned it. Mom's laugh died midair. Dad's face went rigid. Vanessa's perfect smile masked icy tension. I carried Lily and Lucas inside. Their laughter was a fragile shield against the weight in the room. Grandpa Thomas sat in his chair, glass of whiskey in hand, silent but watchful. The air hummed with anticipation. The attack came 30 minutes in. Vanessa, deliberately loud, spoke to a cluster of cousins near the dessert table. I'm so worried about Myra, honestly. She's been acting strangely since her accident, cutting off contact with us for no reason. Mom dabbed at her eyes, feigning concern. Whispers floated around me, pity, doubt. The narrative had been spun before I had even a chance to speak. Aunt Eleanor appeared at my side, low and fierce. "They've been setting this up all week. Don't let them unsettle you." I nodded, kept my back straight, handed Lucas his juice, smoothed Lily's hair, waited. Grandpa's eyes met mine, silent reassurance. The storm was about to break, but first the lies had to speak for themselves. The room fell silent as Grandpa Thomas rose, every eye drawn to him. At 70, his presence still commanded attention, calm, deliberate, unflinching, like a judge in a courtroom. "Before we continue with the festivities," he began, voice steady, carrying across the room, "I have a few things I'd like to say." Dad shifted uneasily, Mom dabbed at her eyes, Vanessa's perfect smile faltered just slightly. Grandpa held up a hand, stopping any interruption. "Richard, Helen, Vanessa, you've painted a picture of Myra as a troubled woman turned against her loving family. I intend to present the facts." He pulled my folder from his jacket, every bank transfer I had made over 8 years, organized, chronological. The room leaned in. "Who has been paying your mortgage all these years?" he asked Dad, color drained from his face. $2,400 a month for 8 years. "Health insurance premiums," Grandpa continued, $800 a month. "Car repairs, emergencies, gifts, $45,000 more. Support for Vanessa's fashion ventures, $12,000. Total, $364,200. The room was frozen. Even the string quartet seemed to pause. Aunt Eleanor stepped forward, voice low but fierce. "For 8 years, Myra gave more than anyone should, and they called her a burden." Vanessa's face turned pale. Dad's hands clenched. Mom sobbed, not delicate sympathy, but raw, ugly shame. Grandpa Thomas paused, letting the numbers sink in. Then he held up his phone. 2 months ago, I had been in a life-threatening accident, bleeding internally, racing to secure care for my twins. He read the text aloud. "Myra, you've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. Figure it out yourself." Gasps, shock, denial. Vanessa tried to speak, but her words sounded hollow. Dad stammered a defense, but Grandpa cut him off. "Did you call her back? Did you go to the hospital?" "No, you did nothing." The room was stunned, faces pale, whispers hushed. The narrative they'd been spinning crumbled in minutes. I held my children close, heart pounding. For the first time, the truth spoke louder than the lies, and it was undeniable. I stepped forward, Lucas in one arm, Lily holding my hand. The room buzzed with stunned whispers. Grandpa Thomas's eyes met mine, steady, patient, giving me the courage I hadn't realized I needed. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said, voice calm but firm. "I came because for 34 years I lived in a version of my family that wasn't real. I believed love was earned through sacrifice, that if I gave enough I would be seen. I was wrong." Tears slid down my cheeks. I didn't wipe them away. "I was strong, not because of you, but because I had to be, because you made me invisible, because you exploited me and called me a burden. I can't keep doing that. I won't." Whispers turned to murmurs. Some relatives leaned closer. Aunt Eleanor gave a small nod, pride in her eyes. Grandpa Thomas's hand rested lightly on mine, grounding me. Mom reached out, trembling. Myra, please. I'm not cutting you off forever, I said, but I need space, real space, not a few weeks of guilt tripping. You need to think about what you've done. Vanessa, silent until now, stepped forward. Her polished facade cracked. I didn't know, she admitted, voice shaking. I liked being the favorite. I didn't ask. I see now. I nodded. Then start from there. Stand on your own feet. Be better. The room stayed quiet. Dad and Mom couldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa looked smaller, humbled. Relatives whispered among themselves, some nodding, some shaking their heads in shock. Grandpa Thomas finally spoke. This is not about punishment. This is about truth, and sometimes truth is the only justice needed. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was quiet but undeniable. 1. My parents left the party early, avoiding confrontation. 2. Family gatherings slowly excluded them, not announced, not formal, but the shift was clear. 3. Cousins and aunts reached out privately, apologizing for believing the lies, for failing to see the truth. 4. The family group chat that once held cruel messages vanished. I felt no glee, no bitterness, just relief. For the first time in years, I was free from obligation masquerading as love. Financially, emotionally, and mentally, the shift was total. The $3,200 monthly I had sent them now went into a college fund for Lily and Lucas. Stability, independence, and clarity replaced years of invisible labor. I realized then, boundaries aren't betrayal. Saying no isn't selfish. Choosing yourself isn't cruel. 6 months after the party, 1 year after the accident, I stood in my new apartment watching the sunset. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a small kitchen, but mine. Free, independent, no mortgage payments to parents who had called me a burden, no insurance premiums flowing into their pockets, just rent, utilities, and a steadily growing college fund for Lily and Lucas. Grandpa Thomas became a constant in our lives. Every Sunday, he took the twins on little adventures, the zoo, the park, ice cream runs. Their laughter echoed through his house just as mine had as a child. Aunt Eleanor stayed close too, more than family, a true ally and friend. She guided me through the emotional aftermath of setting boundaries, of prioritizing myself. I learned to let go of resentment without letting go of truth. I didn't become bitter. I didn't dwell on what my parents and Vanessa had done. I redirected my energy into building a life I could be proud of, one that wouldn't depend on anyone exploiting me. Vanessa called unexpectedly, her voice smaller, humbler than I remembered. I just wanted to say, I see it now. I know what I was, what Mom and Dad did. I don't deserve your time or forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I see it. I listened, nodded, said nothing about money or blame, only, then start from there. Stand on your own feet. Be better. That night, I realized the truth I'd been denying for 34 years. Love isn't a transaction. It isn't earned by sacrifice. It is given freely, or it is not love at all. Friends, allies, and family who actually cared surrounded us. Marcus, my colleague and quiet support during recovery, remained a steady presence. The twins were happy, safe, and thriving, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of freedom, not from a court order or an ultimatum, but from reclaiming my life, my money, my choices, and my self-respect. My parents' consequences unfolded quietly. The house was sold, Dad took a part-time job, Mom did bookkeeping for a local church. They survived, but no longer thrived at my expense. Vanessa struggled to rebuild her career, facing setbacks she had ignored while I silently supported her. I didn't gloat, I didn't take revenge, I simply lived. I chose my life, my children, my peace. And that's the final lesson. It's okay to put down a weight that was never yours to carry. Boundaries aren't betrayal. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. You are not a burden. You are finally free.